good, ladies and gentlemen? Ackle, and of course, welcome back to each and every one of you to episode 11 of the Baron's Chat. I mean, it is nuts, right? It is just absolutely nuts. Being a WoW player right now, being a WoW Andy, being a WoW fanboy is just paying dividends, you know? Fundamentally, it's sort of like this thing of, if you told me 2 years ago that there is going to be a time where you're going to be super happy with everything that Blizzard does, and you're just going to be balls to the wall excited every single week for something that Blizzard is announcing, I would have told you, no shot. Like that, how would that happen? I have been a WoW fan for a long time, and I know for a fact that that is not how it works. There's usually one or two things that you're excited for in an expansion, like one or two things for everyone, right? So there's a lot of things to be excited for, but very few people are excited for all of it. Whereas now, every single week, I go on Wowhead or I go on MMO Champion, and I'm like, bro, like, how can you just keep announcing cool shit? What's going on? Like, at some point, you have to be done. At some point, you have to be done. But it's going to be done soon when the game goes live, right? What is Elune is Azeroth? I'm not sure I understand that question, but you said Elune, you said Azeroth, so I'll go with that. We don't know. Short and long of it. There's a lot of theories, at least, about what Elune could have been. One that I heard that was actually kind of tickled my fancy a little bit is that Elune is an unstable element of the light. So Elune was once a servant or titan of the light that became unstable, either through the introduction of void magic, or perhaps through the introduction of too much arcane, or perhaps it was the Titans doing, we don't quite know, but she became unstable, and this is why she is the moon, because rather than just being of the light, she has this sort of void-esque element to her as well, or at least darkness element to her. That's one part of it. I like that theory, though, because when you look at the champion of Elune is called the Night Warrior, right? And what do we know about the Night Warrior? The Night Warrior is an all-consuming affliction. So while it does grant you all of the power of Elune, when the lore normally plays itself out, it leads to your death and your destruction. So once you become the Night Warrior, there really is no going back. From that point onwards, you're going to keep growing in power, and you're going to become, as the game suggests, the Vengeance of Elune, which suggests that Elune is also very, very angry. So if we're sort of going to go and use inference theory, because that's all we can do with Elune, we have to look at the Night Warrior as being a sort of window into the type of being that Elune may be. This immediately suggests to us that Elune isn't just a good goddess, right? Elune isn't just sort of the collection of all things good. The fact that the Night Warrior is the literal vengeance of Elune suggests that there is a form of instability within Elune, an almost all-consuming sort of hunger within Elune that mere mortals are not capable of withstanding. It is definitely related to both light and dark. Barrels, yes. From at least the fact that it's the moon. So if we look at, and Blizzard loves doing this, right? They love using imagery and also sort of playing off of things. The moon cannot shine without the light. It needs the sun. The sun literally reflects off of the moon. But the moon itself is also associated with darkness. That is why, in my mind, Elune is that balancing act. And it's important to note, when you take beings that we would consider to be pure beings of light, the Naru, for example, the Naru have this innate ability to go from light to void, right? So this suggests that the Titans at their origin, so explanation time here, the Titans did not create the galaxy, nor were they present at the creation of the galaxy. What we read in the Chronicles is the Titans' best attempt at explaining what they observe. So the Titans walked through the Great Beyond, and they observed a bunch of things going on. Based on these observations, the Titans made a bunch of assertions. So from their assertions, they believe the light to be one cosmic force, and the light was the first cosmic force. How they got there, we wouldn't know. It may have something to do with their Zeroth realm. As we know, there are first one writings in these Zeroth realms. So it might be that the Titans in these Zeroth realms, the first one spoke about the light being the first thing. But they claim that the light is the first, and then the void was never actually explained where the void comes from. But the void and the light were the first two forces, and sort of everything else came from these forces. But that's not canonical. That is perspective. It's from their perspective. The fact that light beings have this ability to fall to the void, as it were, suggests that the light and the void are much closer or are much closer related to one another than what the Titans believed. So I believe we're going to get some form of revelation around that. And I think a big form of that is going to be about where we might be going next. We may actually start with that topic. So let's get into... it's a natural flow. So I want to talk about this. There's been data mines, and this might be a spoiler for some people. So if you don't want spoilers, now would be the time to mute the stream. Because, yes, there's been data mines. I don't think it's a spoiler, because those data mines... doesn't have anything to do with the current patch or even the patch 11.0. It is accidental items that were left in the patch but has no bearing on this patch. These items are not going to be available in this patch. So this might actually change. It might be Blizzard who left it there on purpose. Blizzard likes doing that, by the way, leaving stuff in there just to sort of get the community up and ready. One of these items, or some of these items, are connected to some kind of goblin raid. I believe that makes sense, especially with Gallywix, considering Gallywix's story is still not done. We haven't dealt with Gallywix, so I guess let's do a quick recap here for everyone that doesn't know what happened to Gallywix. Gallywix, of course, the trade prince of the Bilgewater Cartel. The Bilgewater Cartel, those are the goblins that joined us. Gallywix, a pretty bad guy. If you read the Goblin short story, you would know Gallywix was, well, he basically didn't care about anyone. Bobby Kotick. I just need to say that. Gallywix was Bobby Kotick in World of Warcraft. But Gallywix had an interesting set of morals, insofar as there was literally nothing that Gallywix wouldn't do if it meant profit. One of those things was Gallywix decided to follow Sylvanas. And he followed Sylvanas right up until the point where Sylvanas betrayed him. And he was left standing with his deck in his hand going, what now? So he ran, right? And that should catch you up. Since he's run away, we don't know what happened to him, right? We have no idea where he's gone. I believe that Gallywix is in hiding, and he probably still has a couple of people that is very loyal to him, specifically higher-up henchmen who managed to also gain from his corruption. And I think Gallywix may have been busy doing some stuff that might be considered untoward. Remember, he had insane amounts of access to Azerite. More so than anyone else because he was the guy mining it for the Horde. Knowing Gallywix, do you guys really think that he didn't take a lot of that Azerite for himself? I would bet that's exactly what he did. So Gallywix, obviously, using all of this Azerite for himself, storing it, has been, I would argue, building bombs with that. Remember, that was the original reason why Sylvanas wanted the Azerite. Because Azerite weapons are ridiculously powerful. And Gallywix has had a lot of time to build weapons. So I think we're going to get some kind of crazy Gallywix story in 11.1, where we should finally deal with him. But then there's another item. And this is actually the item that I think is more interesting than the Gallywix item. And these are items related to some kind of ethereal raid. Now, the Ethereals. We should do some backstory here. The Ethereals that we know today are not the original race that the Ethereals hail from. There is a very close connection between the Ethereals and the Brokers, at least in the way they look. Although I don't believe that the game ever draws a clear similarity between the two. but the way they look suggests that they may have come from the same place. Their home planet is called Koresh. So, what do we know about the Ethereals as a race? As it turns out, very, very little. The Ethereals, none of them wishes to speak about what actually happened to their planet, or the kind of people that they were before their planet came or ceased to exist. All we know is that they were incredibly advanced technologically. They were also incredibly rich, and they were incredibly proficient at arcane magic. In fact, it is that same proficiency that led to their downfall. The Koreshians, as I'll call them now, or the Ethereals as we know them today, used arcane to basically reshape, reorder, and recreate their entire world. They created giant sprawling cities with incredible architecture and power, all using this power of the arcane. This arcane, sadly, sort of acted as a beacon for the Void Lords. It made Koresh almost shine like a light in the darkness. And one of these Void Lords that made their way to Koresh was a Void Lord by the name of Dementius. Now, quick thing about Dementius, for everyone that doesn't know. Dementius is considered a Void Lord because the Ethereals tell us that Dementius is a Void Lord. And we have seen Dementius as a Void Lord. The problem is that we don't actually know whether or not Dementius is the Void Lord or just a Void Lord. We don't know anything about the Void outside of the old gods. We've never actually seen the inner workings of the Void because we don't have the ability to go there. I personally believe, from my own reading of the story and how I would want it to be, I think Dementius is a world eater of sorts. I think Dementius is one of the forward generals that is sent to worlds that the Void wish to absorb into themselves. And I don't believe... Should I say this now or should I wait? Let's wait a little. I'll tell you in a second. So Koresh gets attacked by Dementius. How does Dementius attack Koresh? It absorbs it. Bit by bit, piece by piece, it literally feeds off of the matter of the planet until there is nothing left of that planet. So how do the Ethereals save themselves? Quite simple. They use the arcane to build giant shields around their cities. These shields would then feed Dementius, and it would keep them safe. The problem is that these shields that they built around their cities started to literally absorb their own flesh. They started to be eaten by the shields that they had created to keep them safe. This is the amount of power that Dementius had in the absorption of power, so the arcane started to eat their own flesh. This is why when you see Ethereals now, they have these bindings. The bindings are meant to keep them intact, because all you see with an Ethereal is the soul of the being. Their flesh has already been destroyed. So we don't actually know what they look like. We only know this new version of them. That is all we know. And most Ethereals won't even admit that. They won't even tell you that that is what happened. But that is as far as we know what happened to them. I'll ask chat. Do you guys think... What do you think happened to Koresh? Do you actually believe that Dementius just consumed it all in order... Because this was the theory back in the day. Void Lords, because they are outside of creation and sort of like antimatter, in order to be in our universe, they need a massive amount of energy in order to sustain themselves. Do you think that's all that happened to Koresh? Let me rephrase. No, I can't rephrase, because then I'm giving away what I want to say. I think the whole of Koresh is still available. It still exists. The entire planet, as it stands, still exists. In its entirety. And you could potentially, theoretically go there. I'm about to drop this on you guys, so pay attention. What happens when the demons invade and attack a planet? What happens? When the demons are done with a planet, They literally pull that planet from the Great Beyond into the Twisting Nether. This is why the demons keep attacking planets. The demons don't just attack planets because they hate life or whatever. The demons, as they move onto planets and as they spread their foul corruption, the foul corruption literally pulls planets into the Twisting Nether, or the Twisting Nether rises to meet them. Because we know that the Twisting Nether sort of exists all around us, so it changes phases from a Great Beyond planet to a Twisting Nether planet instead. I believe that that is exactly what Dementius did to Koresh. To the Ethereals, Koresh was being absorbed. It was being destroyed. But that's only because the Ethereals had no ability to see into the void. They couldn't see into the void realms. So they couldn't see their entire planet being rebuilt inside the realms of the void. Nyalotha. Where is Nyalotha? Where is Nyalotha? It's all around us from what we can see, right? We went through a portal and we entered into Nyalotha. But we also see parts of Nyalotha on Azeroth. The Black Empire, the zones that were corrupted by the Black Empire, those are parts of Azeroth that is almost void corrupted. So the way you should look at this, the way you should think about this is the Twisting Nether is a realm that is layered on top of our existence, our dimension. The Void realm is exactly the same thing. It's layered on top of our existence. So when Dementius arrived, he wasn't absorbing and destroying Koresh. He was pulling Koresh into a different dimension. To us, in our dimension, it would look as if our planet is being destroyed. But that's not what's happening. Our planet is still there. We're just not able to see it unless we get absorbed as well, which means we phase change into the void. And that is what I think transpired there. Now, what is very interesting, while we're talking about Koresh, we now know, thanks to Locust Walker, that the Radiant song that everyone's been hearing was heard on Koresh as well. Now, for those of you that still don't know, I, to this day, reject the idea that the Radiant song is Azeroth's voice. I don't believe it. The Empire doesn't believe it. We'll talk about the Empire a little bit later. But that's the Arathians. They believe that that song comes from Baladar. I think it's called Baladar, the giant crystal. They believe that it comes from the giant crystal. And that's the one that made it. The Arathians believe that the crystal is the one doing the song. That's why they chased the song, because their emperor kept getting these visions from the crystal Baladar, so they believe it comes from there. Locust Walker says that those exact same, the Radiant song that Illyria keeps referring to, that everyone else sees as a voice of hope, but to her, it's a voice of despair. Locust Walker says that that exact same vision or voice or song was heard on Koresh before Dementius arrived. So I still reject the idea that it came from Azeroth. I don't believe it. And I know a lot of people will say, oh, but the cinematics say Azeroth did it. Yeah, if you're a developer and you want to hide certain parts of the lore, why not just go with the obvious one that players are going to jump to? Because, well, that's obvious, right? Everyone's going to think it's Azeroth. And you want people to think for now that this is Azeroth. So I genuinely don't believe that it is Azeroth. I believe that it is that crystal and whatever is inside that crystal. Because if the Radiant song on Koresh is the same one as is heard on Azeroth, then none of this makes sense. Koresh has never been said to have a Titan or house a Titan of any kind. So why would that song be there? And then more importantly, why would the song be exactly the same as the one of Azeroth? These are two separate Titans. Why would they have the same song? and moments before Dimensions arrives. No. They have the same crystal. That crystal is some form of light incursion, and I think the light leaves those crystals all over the Great Beyond as a way to invade planets and to capture those planets for the light when the need arrives, right? I think that's what those crystals are. They're invasionary forces, perhaps giant robots that are meant to pop out and eventually conquer a planet when they see the time is right or whatever. I don't trust the light, just FYI. But we'll get into more of that a little bit later. But right, so Koresh absorbed into the realms of the void, but we are going to go there. At least that's what it looks like. Because there is an item that is called the Ethereal Raid. So we're going to have a raid about the Ethereals. And to me, this makes perfect sense. In 11.1, going to Koresh, it fits perfectly. If we want to know how to stop a Void Lord from arriving on Azeroth, we need to go where a Void Lord has already been. We need to go see what a Void Lord actually does to a planet. It might be that we actually go into the realms of the void for the first time ever in order to go see what the void is like, to learn what the void is like. And that might be a precursor to the Midnight expansion, which we already know takes place in Quel'Thalas. But no one is to say that it is the Quel'Thalas of our dimension, right?